Hello gang, Tattooed Biker here with you. And tonight, I've got 4 real reports from real viewers describing encounters with people that, for one reason or another, didn't seem exactly human. And this is a pretty mixed bag this evening. We've got a few black-eyed beings, one strange report where the witness wonders if maybe they encountered an alien hybrid of some sort, and even one encounter on a rural West Virginia roadway that reminded me of, well, another encounter, which I'll mention later on. So you don't want to miss this one. Grab your gear and let's ride. Number 1. Hey, biker man. So this happened a long time ago, in 2008, in a galaxy not so far away from you, in Wolfdale, Pennsylvania. Now, I've had a pretty good life. Loving parents, 2 cool big sisters, lots of friends, and no bullies at school. I never wanted for anything, as my parents always got me any video game I wanted. But I got a story that I've never told anyone before. Not my parents, not my big sisters, and not even my friends, for fearing that I'd be labeled crazy. I always slept with the TV on. Whatever bothered me at night wouldn't bother me when the TV was on. But sometimes my parents would turn off the TV and then things would get weird. I was tormented for 3 years by this thing that could turn invisible. It looked like a very slender, yet very toned teenage boy with pitch black eyes, like one of those black-eyed kids. He wore a white tank top and baggy black sweats, but no shoes at all. He had cuts and scratches all up and down his arms. He was very, very pale. He had dirty blonde-colored hair. Before every time it appeared, I'd feel a sense of impending danger, panic, and doom, but, like I said, it could turn invisible. So it was hard to gauge where it was in the room before it'd start messing with me. So it made it very hard to prepare myself. It'd also reappear and disappear constantly, just to mess with me. Now this thing would scare me each time until I was so full of fear, like tears, running like waterfalls down both cheeks, trembling, heart beating like a drum, and frozen stiff with fear and clinging to my sheets, or it'd make too much noise. Someone, like one of my sisters or parents, would come, wondering what was going on. It'd do things like play tug-of-war with my blankets. It'd purposely let me think I'd win the tug-of-war, before it'd just yank them off the bed and throw them onto the floor. It'd do things like jumping on the bed, and it could mimic voices and noises, and it would sometimes sneak up on me and make creepy noises like animal growls, or make monster noises from my video games and movies that I like to play and watch, like the Tusken Raider noise from Star Wars. It wouldn't do this too often, as it would wake people up. And even a crueler trick that it would do was mimic door knocking and the voice of one of my big sisters coming to check on me before appearing and messing with me. It also often mock and taunt me in different voices. It also pinned me down and forced me to stare into those unsettling black voids that it considered eyes. I tried saying any kind of prayer to see if that would help, but it would just mock me. It'd sometimes let me run to the door before shutting it and putting all its weight against it so I couldn't open it. And I'd just be left there, beating and banging on the door, a sobbing, crying, whimpering, terrified mess. This thing would have me so terrified that I couldn't even scream for help. I could only squeak out. It would sit on my chest, yank the pillow out from under my head, and start bopping me with it in a one-sided pillow fight. It tried pulling me under the bed a few times. It'd mess with my feet if they were out of the blanket or over the bed, grabbing them slightly just to scare me, and 3 times it even bit me on the foot. Not hard enough to puncture the skin, but still painful. It'd do things like letting me hide under the blankets, thinking that I was safe, and then it would yank them off first before knocking me off the bed, tossing me up and down in the air. Sometimes It'd throw me back on the bed, and sometimes it would just let me fall flat onto the floor, where I'd scramble up to the door and run out of the room. One of these times, I was able to go and wake someone. Every other time, it let me get halfway there before tripping me and dragging me back in by my legs. It wouldn't bother anyone else in the house. I'd try ignoring it multiple times, but that never worked. So anyway, one night I get down by the foot of my bed and start closing my eyes and praying as hard as I can. The whole time this thing was mocking me and punching me in the back. The next thing I know, this thing lets out a super loud hissing sound, like it's seriously hurt, and every light in my room turns on at once. Desk lamp, TV, ceiling fan light, and even the bathroom light. Like brighter than what a light bulb could possibly be. It was so bright it actually woke up my big sister down the hallway. And thankfully, I've never seen that horrible thing again. Thanks for reading. Signed, Gregory. Number 2. Dear Biker, I'm from Perth, Western Australia, and, well, I've experienced something really bizarre. In or around July of 2011, I had been having a few medical issues and was waiting at my local pathology clinic for a glucose tolerance test, which takes about 2 hours for 3 separate samples. I had arrived around 8:30 a.m., and I was fourth in line, so I began reading a magazine. My turn came up, and I gave my first blood sample, and then glucose concentrate to drink. The lady was actually surprised to see me scull the drink, as most people find it rather unpleasant. Then I was told to wait in reception for an hour before they could take my next sample. During this time, I observed a young lady walk up to the front door, look inside, and then walk away. She did this 3 times during the half hour I was there, waiting for the next sample. On the 4th, she came in. Didn't take a ticket, but just sat down anyway. This young lady was around 6 feet tall, with very pale skin to the point that it was almost white. Was extremely thin, but I wouldn't say anorexic looking, and wore those same sunglasses like movie stars wear when they're trying not to be noticed. Something about her just seemed rather different, but I couldn't quite pick out what it was. Although her arms did seem longer than usual, at least the average hand's worth of extra length, I had the distinct impression that she may not be entirely human for some reason. So just on the off chance, I thought to myself, "You're not from here, are you?" All the while trying not to be too obvious about observing her. At that exact moment, she whipped her head around and looked directly at me, and then stood up and hurried out the door in a particularly awkward fashion, much like a puppet on stage, with its arms outstretched slightly in front. Quite a spectacle to observe, and others outside looked and stared as well. At that point in time, when she looked directly at me, the sun reflected from behind her, off of her sunglasses, and then directly towards her eyes, illuminating them. Those eyes were large. I couldn't make out the color of the iris, if there was one, but the eyelids were around 45 millimeters wide, and about the same in height. I saw no reflection off the eyes themselves. When it came time for me to provide another sample, I mentioned the situation to the woman conducting the tests. I had known her for around 5 years at that point, and I was told that I know who you're talking about, and she needs specialized blood treatment, but keep it to yourself. My father used to work for the same company, doing biological transport as a courier. She knows my father. I've just had cause to go for another blood sample on the 7th of January, and we'll be having another GTT test this week. I hope to see that same young lady again. All the details that I've provided here are true and accurate descriptions of events that I experienced at that time on that day. Anyway, I thought that may be of interest to you. Signed, Neil. Number 3. Dear Biker, I wanted to tell you about an incident that took place near Wheeling, West Virginia, during the winter of 2002. I've told a few people, at least those I can trust for their honest opinion. Ever since it occurred, I've been puzzled and frightened. I'm going to be specific and honest about all the details. Please don't judge me, but my girlfriend and I used to go to a local treatment center for opiate addiction and counseling. Since starting treatment, I have remained clean, and I'm proud of that. It's been really difficult, but with diligence and support, we've both gotten through it. Though I can honestly say that the incident that I'm about to describe made breaking my dependency even more difficult. Many of our appointments were in the evening, around 5 or 6 p.m. The center is about a mile off the interstate, on a wooded road, with a few other businesses around it. It can be a very dark road, even before the sun goes down. On this particular day, it was about 5:15 p.m. and already dark, except for a few sparsely placed streetlights. It was extremely cold, and there was an inch or so of snow on the ground. We had just driven off the interstate exit onto the wooded road when we noticed someone ahead of us on the right shoulder walking towards the center. I thought that it might be another patient, so I asked my girlfriend if she knew who it was, and maybe we could give them a lift. As we approached, I slowed down to try and get a better look at the person. When I got nearer, the figure stopped and turned its head and looked directly at us. What I witnessed then was the most terrifying thing that I've ever seen. It was wearing a dark-colored clothing and a hooded jacket of some kind. The face, it just wasn't human. It had a huge, strange smile on its face. And this smile, when I mean huge, literally went from one side of the face to the other. And the teeth were enormous, but not sharp. The teeth kind of reminded me of a horse's teeth, and the overall expression was very similar to the Joker from the animated Batman TV cartoon. I remember my girlfriend gasped and then ducked to hide her face. Needless to say, we didn't stop, but I just had to get another look. I needed to figure out what it was that we saw. I turned the car around at a driveway and went back. My girlfriend quickly crawled into the back seat and covered herself up. She didn't want any part of this. I turned around and reached the spot where we had seen it. It was no more than 30 seconds, but it was gone. There was nowhere that this thing could have gone to. There was a high chain-link fence around the road and the edge of the woods, and on the other side of the road is a creek. This thing had simply vanished. Another car was coming from the direction of the interstate and slowed down to see if everything was all right. I asked if they had seen anyone walking on the shoulder, but they said they hadn't. After we couldn't find it, I asked my girlfriend to describe to me what she had seen. She also compared it to the Joker. Now, we're still a couple, and we've talked about this experience in detail many times. I don't know what it was, but I know that whatever it wasn't human. It just seemed off for some reason. Something that I can't put my finger on, and I felt it deep in my soul. I know how this comes across, but I assure you, this incident is 100% true. In the time since we witnessed this thing, I've still not found any plausible explanation. Was it natural, which I doubt, or a real monster? I'd appreciate your thoughts. Signed, Jake.
Well, what I mentioned to Jake, and I'll share with you, is that the first time that I read this email, I thought about a man named Woodrow Derenberger, who also encountered a man with an unnatural grin while driving on a rural West Virginia road back in 1966, and that being described himself as Indrid Cold. I'm not sure these two incidents are related, but of everything I believe in, coincidence is pretty far down on the list.
Number 4. Hi, Biker. I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the date of this incident was 8/15/2014. I was a waiting customer, in line at Pep Boy's auto shop, just looking around, and that's when a small woman entered and appeared oddly dressed. Now, she looked to be in her 70s or maybe early 80s at first because of her rather messy gray hair, which fell down to about the chin line. She was only about 5 feet tall and wore very short, baggy, unironed shorts and a baggy, unironed blouse. Her face seemed completely normal. Eventually, my name was called and I turned my attention to the business at hand and then went to sit in the adjacent waiting room. I had been seated there for about 15 minutes when this same woman came to the all-glass door and tried to pull it open. She couldn't pull it open with one hand since her other hand was holding a small book and a drink. I started to get up, walked across the room to help open the door, but someone sitting beside the door opened it for her. She then sat down at a right degree angle to me. She at 90 degrees and me sitting at 180 degrees, about 4 feet away. I was curious about her since she seemed so strangely dressed. I looked her directly at her eyes, and when her eyes met mine, it was then that I noticed that she had no white in the eyeball. Her eyes were just completely black. I was startled, and I must have looked so because she got up instantly and walked out of the waiting room. I followed behind her for about 20 seconds, but saw her no more after looking around a bit. It's like she just vanished. Now, she may have been wearing a wig or had some kind of weird, different contact lenses in her eyes, but I don't think so. Something about her just seemed really off, and I've been wondering about whether she was one of those black-eyed beings or maybe some kind of hybrid. I also wonder if anyone else has had an experience similar to this. I actually reported the incident to MUFON, and I did so without hesitation because, well, it just sounds so bizarre, and I also wanted to share it with your channel as well, Biker. Thanks. Signed, Carrie Ann.
And there it is. All I have for you tonight. 4 creepy, true encounter stories from viewers just like you. So what did you guys think about these encounters? I look forward to reading your thoughts and theories in the comment section, but please, keep it respectful to the witnesses. And if you have a strange, unexplained encounter or experience that, well, you'd like to share, just send it to the email address in the description and your story might just wind up in a future video. Anyways, thanks so much for riding with me tonight. I really appreciate you. And hey, if you haven't already, you've made it this far. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any trips into the unexplained. So until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker.